Hello, hello. Hope everybody's having a good night. Um, I know we're doing some cross programming here because the Super Bowl's on right now, but I don't have a dog in that fight. Even though I live in Valley Forge right outside of Philadelphia, I don't think I'll ever be an Eagles fan. I'm from Wisconsin. So, green and gold, Green Bay Packers. Joining me tonight is Lawson's Finest Liquid Sip of Sunshine IPA. It's awfully tasty. Um, if you get up to Vermont area, or wait, Connecticut? If you get up north, um, Waitsfield, Vermont, you might want to check them out. So, anyway, I hope everybody's having a good night tonight. Uh, nice. It is a favorite. I like this design. It was the first design I did. It's the one that's been in the stickers. It's still a favorite. I like the colors. I like the vibrancy of it. So, so what's gone on for the last 2 weeks? Well, it's been what I suspected 2 weeks ago has proven to be true. So let's get the bad news out of the way first before we get to all the fun stuff. Um, most of my high pointing plans for this year have been put on hiatus, much to my dismay. That even it's looking like it's going to include the um, Kansas road trip that I was hoping to do around spring break time in March. So um, I'm gonna try so hard to do one Western Peak, um, and it'll probably end up being Idaho. But right now, I can't commit to any of that. We have to buckle down on our finances and make sure that we are prepared for the next couple months. Hopefully, I'm a big believer and things will always get better. Um, but right now, we're going to weather the storm. And the best way I can weather the storm is to curb any extraneous spending, including high point trips. Not all high point trips, though. So, looking at the schedule, I'm just going to actually bring up to um, I'm going to go redo a few things. I'm going to redo New Jersey. I mentioned that before. So we're going to shift from bad news to good news. Um, don't you have memberships available? Yes, I do have memberships available, but I don't. This, I guess, is the Midwest coming out in me. I don't want to. People subscribe. I'm happy that they subscribe. I love the fact that they watch. There's a bit of money that comes in from those subscriptions. Um, I think like every 3 months I bring in $100. I think this channel, since it monetized 4 years ago, has brought in like $1,200, which I'm eternally grateful for. That's $1,200 I didn't have before. But this is definitely not um, bringing in the big dollars when it comes to membership subscription, and I tend not to be pushy about that. Maybe I should be, but I'm pretty content with how things are going. I probably should take a stronger tack on that, but if you want to buy the merch, I love it. I love that, but I'm not gonna. My Midwestern sensibilities get in the way. Um, so I need probably at some point I need to hire a fearless marketer to relentlessly promote things. Um, but yeah, I'm not. That's just not me. I would rather have people want to be here and enjoy the content that I'm providing. So, um, but yes. So shifting gears, I'm going to redo New Jersey probably in the next couple months. Alabama's still actually in the editing room right now and should be out hopefully before next weekend, fingers crossed. Um, and California's coming, Texas is coming. New Jersey will, like I said, will get the redo, and that will be back out. And then I'm going to go redo West Virginia. All those can be done. All those are either filmed already or in the, you know, close. Jersey is a really quick day trip. I mean, I don't even need to get up early to do that. Um, that can all be done in a day. And West Virginia actually will be a super long day trip, but um, it can be done relatively quickly. So um, if I do manage to make it back to Wisconsin to see my folks, then I might fit Ohio, a redo of Ohio, and maybe even a redo of Minnesota, because that would be fun. Um, I have so many ideas for the Arrowhead. It's such a cool area, and I didn't do it really good justice. So, Nicholas, by the way, did you get your card finally? I hope you did, and I hope you got the sticker in it too. So, purchase a lottery for Whitney. Use all 10 slots for 4 people apiece. Nice. I hope you do. I hope you get it, Pretzel. I really think it's a pretty cool hike. Um, yeah, I can't tell you about the mountaineering route, but I could get information about it. Um, I could get Brett's input and how he and his wife Amy did it. Um, it's supposedly a really cool route, and if I ever go back to do Whitney, I might very well consider doing the mountaineering route. So, but if you do the standard route, it's really pretty. You won't be alone, and while it's super long, it's not terribly. There's You're not going to break yourself on the grade. So, oh, nice. Well, still, I'm glad. I don't know if I've ever told you how I view the holiday season. To me, the holiday season starts at Labor Day and it runs all the way through the President's Day weekend coming up this coming weekend. Which, speaking of which, if anybody is doing Charles Mound this weekend for the winter um, dates, remember it's just Saturday and Sunday. It's not the Monday holiday. So, very cool, Pretzel. I hope you do get it. That will be pretty awesome. Um, Other things, so it's not just high pointing stuff that I'm going to occupy my time with, though, because I have been busy. I have been working a bit on series to get that finally finished so Rooftops of the Solar System can be completely wrapped up. Um, so I have that one coming too. I need to film the live footage of that. I got to find a park in the area that I think can do some pretty cool uh, justice on that. I might go to Ringing Rocks, might even go back to the Boulder Field that I originally shot the Mercury episode on way back when. So I'd like to get that out too. So that'll occupy some time. And then the other stuff I've been working on where inspiration has struck and I have been writing a lot is something I mentioned 2 weeks ago, but I feel it is definitely time to just rip the band aid off and tell you all about the new series coming up called Fearsome Critters. Um, Now, Fearsome Critters is based on 2 books, two, not four, two, from when I grew up in the North Woods of Wisconsin. There's a book that I remember reading as a kid called Fearsome Creatures from the Lumber Woods, and it was written by a guy named William Cox. You can find this online. It is in the public domain. And it basically was a catalog of sorts of all these American sort of comic um, cryptids, um, American comic folklore monsters or creatures. We're talking about things like if you've ever been to Rhinelander and you've seen the Chamber of Commerce, you have seen the hodag, this sort of lizard-like creature, or depending where you hang your hat. Um, for anybody that's in Maryland, I'm sure you've heard tales of the snallygaster or chessie, or up in Maine, you have like the dingmall. Out in Colorado, the slide rock bolter. All these sort of comic cryptids, and I have decided that this and its follow-on book, "Fearsome Critters" by Henry Tyron. Both of them are in the public domain. Yay! I'm gonna do a fun series on those. So I've been writing new stories. Um, a new one. So this series is basically going to look at these creatures, and it's broken up into a couple parts. You have the encounter with them, and then you have the background of them. And so I've been writing new encounter stories of these creatures. Some of them are related or are relatively adjacent to high points. Um, and in fact, the whole reason I went down this road was when I was looking at Katahdin, and they were talking about the Maine woods. There was reference to some of these critters, the dingwall in particular, and I started just digging into it a little bit, and I was like, this demands further exploration. And you're right, Hike with Mike. Thank you for being here first. And yes, skunk ape in Florida is a Bigfoot variant. You also have a cryptid up near Defuniak, um, called the snollygaster, not the snallygaster, the snollygaster, Snoli gaster. So, um, yeah, I figured this would be really fun. Fire Learning Scripts in North America says it probably is. There has been other work done on this, so I'm trying not to look into more of the newer stuff. I'm trying to stay really close to the original stuff that William Cox and Henry Tyron did, and write up the stories that I want to write, like using my creativity, writing new stories, and then finding an animator, which I'm working on, to animate those stories, and then to do the live footage, the background of them. So I really am excited about this. I think it'll be a lot of fun. It's been really sort of fun to flex these creative muscles. Because Rooftops of America is a lot of things, but it's not. The creativity of Rooftops of America doesn't necessarily stem from the research, because the research is very historical oriented, very factual oriented. Um, I want to I want to document these places and tell compelling factual stories. Whereas here, you get to, it's fiction. So you get to really expand out and, lay in, look at something like, say, the squonk, and, you see what was written in 100 years ago, or 90 years ago. And to take that story and stay true to it, but put a little more polish on it, or put a little more, take it in the add to it, add a little spice to it. But so it's been really cool, and I hope that you guys will enjoy it. Um, so what I want to bring to these cryptids is some well, new new visuals for one. I've retained an artist to illustrate some of these stories. And like I said, I'm looking for an animator to animate some of these stories. So it'll be fresh and cool. Um, it adds something to the legends behind them. And it's also going to be a really cool way to occupy my time while I'm trying to figure out how to, you know, not lose my mind by not being able to knock out new high points. So, like I said, really excited about it. It has been, um, I've been working pretty diligently on this. So the channel got stood up a while back. So if you went on YouTube and you actually looked up Fearsome Critters as a channel, you will find my channel. There's no content on it. It is just a holding pattern right now, but new content will be very much coming. So I'll probably be asking folks to subscribe at some point in the near future. But if you wanted to go check it out now, you won't find much, but hey, hit that subscribe button. So yeah, it's been really interesting to sort of dive into this and make a determination on which creatures I want to go down the road of. Um, I've made some like something like interestingly enough, Bigfoot. There's tons about Bigfoot, so I don't really want to go down Bigfoot the road for Bigfoot yet. Maybe someday down the road, and all its variants. And the same sort of goes with things like the Thunderbird or Skinwalkers, those Native American traditions. I don't want to quite go down those roads yet either. I don't know how to. I haven't quite figured out how to do them good justice. Um, so I'm sticking to the originals. Um, Fearsome Critters. I'll put it in the chat. And like I said, most of these guys, in fact, almost all of these guys are more comic. Um, Not in some cases less scary, but definitely more comic. It's one of the interesting things about American folklore is some of these tall tales, and that's what a lot of them are. There can be a little bit of horror or terror stuff into them, but they still are at their heart more things you'd tell around a campfire sort of thing, like things that go bump in the night sort of thing. And um, it's a good way to, you know, ideally this is set. I've always envisioned this as, the stories I want to tell would be the stories you'd tell to your fellow campmates, out in the woods. Um, so yeah, there can be a little blood and guts because hey, ghost stories are fun, but at the same time, sometimes it's just the lesson of don't follow the answer back because it's going to get you lost. The only weird thing I've seen in the woods are orbs. Ooh, will o wisps. Um, at least I'm thinking that's my the terrible eye is the only weird and scary thing I've seen in the woods is myself. I think some people the only weird and scary thing they've seen in the woods is me. So anyway, that's what's coming up. Um, I've got I've got a better handle on the stories than I thought I was going to have at this point. And like I said, inspiration has definitely struck. So I'm going to run that to the hilt because I know who I am and I know when I'm inspired to write, I need to write because it comes and goes. And right now it is on full on. So I've got a chip on my shoulder and, the words are just flowing out. So I'm writing. Um, Ideally, my thought on this is um, some of these places I would like to get back into the travel bit of it because some of them are very much localized to certain areas. Like the Hodag is very much associated. It wasn't always, but now, if you want the Hodag, Rhinelander, Wisconsin is the home of the Hodag. But it wasn't always that way. You can find stories of that in Maine. You can find stories of that in other, Northwoods areas. But Rhinelander sort of has the heart of it now. Um, so, and a thing like the squonk here in Pennsylvania, you know, you could probably find other variations of the squonk, but it is a Pennsylvania thing, and they're very proud of it, like the Snallygaster in Maryland. So there might be some of these I'd love to travel a little bit to film the live stuff in that particular area because I'm a big fan of shooting on location. But like I said, travel is restricted for the time being. So, um, what I'm going to try to do is uh, when I do get things figured out, try to double it up with other things. So, um, reminds me of my first visit to the Congaree National Park. For that trip, I was trying to get to the lowest point first of all, but was caught out after dark. Turn around and made my see that actually pretzel is like a classic sort of setup for some of these stories. A lot of them really can't I can't help but like you're walking in the woods sort of thing, and something happens. Um, I kept hearing a ton of rustling along that wilderness trail. I was terrified. I think it might have been the wild hogs there. And literally, like pretzel, that's a classic setup. So yeah, back to looking forward to the episode on Man Bear Pig. Interestingly enough, too new. And here's one that actually I thought I would end up going down the road of, but I didn't because it's too new. A thing like the chupacabra, ironically or interestingly enough, that story, I've always thought like I don't know why, but I kept thinking like, oh, the chupacabra, I've been hearing about it forever. But really that story started coming out in the 90s from Puerto Rico. And so it was one of these things where um, the chupacabra is not on the list in the immediate list. So I'm really trying to stay in that 18th century to early 20th century. Mainly, a lot of them are 19th century creations. Um, so it'll be interesting. In the surfing community, uh, Hodad, nice, is a surfer poser. Nice. Um, that's pretty funny. No, I feel like um, this is a nice little spin-off of the High Point series, considering some of these probably could have been worked in to high pointing episodes. Um, like Tim's Hill, talking about Tim's Hill, Rhinelander's about, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes away to the northeast. I probably could have worked in something about it. The same with Katahdin. I probably could have worked in something out it. And Colorado with the Slide Rock Bolter. So all that stuff would be, um, could have been, there could have been touch points. And like I said, this series actually does come out of my research from Rooftops of America. So let's see. Archie, hey, I'm glad you're here. Um, reading the new series. The new series is not on North American legendary creatures. It's on North American sort of comic folklore. Um, I'll give you one of the primary sources: Fearsome of the Lumber Woods by William Cox. So that was the book that was written in 1909, 1910. So if one of your teams was in the Super Bowl, Sky, would you be watching that now and post? Yes, if Green Bay, I would have told you 2 weeks ago, if the Green Bay Packers were going to be in the Super Bowl, this would totally have been postponed. The Green Bay Packers are not in the Super Bowl. So, no. I might as well say this too. If the Milwaukee Brewers or the Milwaukee Bucks um, get to the World Series or the NBA championship, you could pretty much guarantee if there was a game scheduled on that respective time um, that the live stream is supposed to go, we're going to take a rain check. So, and now you know. But yes, since I don't have a dog in the fight, the Super Bowl is one of these things where it's like, I get it. Some people are enjoying it, but I've been spending my evening, writing stories. So, hey, David, I'm glad you're here. So, in other news, what else has happened? Well, like I said, Alabama is underway right now. I got to record the voiceover probably tomorrow or Tuesday. Um, and that episode's looking pretty good. Um, and then I've got um, next on the docket after that will most likely be California. Brett's got it all storyboarded out, and I just got to get um, other pieces put into place. So, and then driving right on. So let's see. Where issues A to Z? I honestly would have to look. I don't really worry until it gets down to like two. With your hiatus, are you still shooting for 56 by 56? Probably. In fact, I was actually hoping to be done before I hit 56, but now I feel like the way you just set that up, Eric, I feel like maybe that's what I should strive for. I mean, like, let's program this out to 56 by 56. So that might go in the good idea box. Um, and oh, I meant to share with you guys the uh, Trail Talk podcast, and I don't think I did. So let me track that down quick. Um, Here it is. Okay, here it is. Here's the link to it. That was the Trail Talk podcast I did a couple weeks ago with Lauren Toner. If you haven't checked out her podcast, please do. And that one, we're talking about what's in a name. It was a great conversation. I thought it was really fun to dive into that. I have more important things to do than watch multimillionaires play a game. That's pretty funny. What's the steepest the Whitney Trail gets? Honestly, I'm trying to think. I don't ever remember it getting really. I don't remember the grade ever being really steep on the standard route. It's just constant. Um, you have to always remember. I think the steepest it ever got was actually when you're coming back down and you're wrapping around like, um, God, what are they called? You come off the plateau and you're coming down around the spires and you're going back up. And I think that's actually the steepest before you start going back down all the switchbacks. Um, I just remember that um, my legs were so blasted out that anytime, like on the descent, that the trail would ramp up a little bit, I would have to stop. Like I was doing totally fine on every descent, but anytime it would go up a little bit, uh, I would literally, it would just like blow. It was like all of a sudden, the needle just went right into the rat. So, um, is there a trail for Whitney inside Sequoia National Park? I believe there is. I believe there is a way you can come up that way. I'd have to look at a map. Yeah. You even go into it briefly into John Muir Wilderness when you get up to the top of the switchbacks. So I think if I remember right, I'd have to look at a map again. Have you hiked Mount Washington, New Hampshire? Or it is the most dangerous mountain on the East Coast. It is the most dangerous mountain on the East Coast. There are people in this chat that have hiked it both in the summer and the winter. I believe Mr. Eric Kelly can provide the best bait on it. I, full disclosure, cheated both times, because when I went to film it, I drove up. Um, Actually, I took the train the first day because trains are cool and people love to see trains. Um, and then the second day, I actually drove the auto road, both times filming the entire like the sequence. Um, and so I did not hike on Washington. It is on the list. I do want to get there and hike Mount Washington. Um, it's gonna be probably one of my training elements when I finally get to, focusing on Denali, and rightfully so. It is a very easy peak to underestimate for folks. I think we've talked about this before, but you can be standing down um, on the road, and it'll be a beautiful sunny day, mid 70s, just gorgeous Northwoods type day in the White Mountains. And on top of Mount Washington, it can be snowing, winds can be 40, 50 miles an hour, and it's just absolute crap. So people don't go in prepared for all the elements, and that's what gets them into trouble. So it is a mountain that is never to be underestimated. Um, it is a mountain that, the Coast Guard with their Semper Paratus, always prepared, uh, you know, would be, it reinforces that particular motto. So, oh, Eric, doing winners summit attempt to Mount Washington this Saturday. Best of luck, man. Good luck on that. Uh, Bill me in. I've hiked Mike Washington in the summer, not so dangerous. Would you do Mount Washington in winter, Sky? Yeah, I probably will end up doing it in the winter when I start getting ready for Denali. I did Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison in winter. I recommend professional guidance if you haven't done winter mountaineering before. Thank you. Terrible ideas. Great point. Mount Washington winter is brutal. There's only a handful of high points I've done in wintertime: Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Voyageurs National Park. Voyageurs borders Canada and Minnesota. Yes, it does. Um, I've wanted to snowshoe Eagle Mountain in winter. My winter summits are much more limited. Um, my extent of my mountain hiking is a 200-foot sandhill in the Pinelands of Florida. Hey, everybody's got to start somewhere, um, and don't. One of the great things about American high points is they span such a wide range, um, where you have a you can really sort of some of them start off super gentle. In fact, you can drive up to a lot of them, and then they sort of ramp up in difficulty, like really steep at the end. Um, I'm making Mount Washington an annual hike every President's Day weekend. That's awesome, Eric, and I will take your rain check on that, um, because I think I would love to go up that hike with you in the winter, because you've got the experience. So, my favorite winter hike of all time was, you're gonna laugh when I tell you this, was Point Reno in DC, simply because it was very unexpected, and it was just one of these opportunities where, like, I could totally bag this crazy snowy winter ascent, uh, get off the metro and hike over to the park. So I will say this, I almost busted it twice on the walk back to the metro, so it wasn't completely without danger. The roads were slick, the sidewalks were slick. Um, let's see. How many miles is Fort Reno from the National Mall? Uh, I don't exactly know, but I will just say take the red line out to Tenleytown. It's so much easier. Yeah. The So what else is I will say, despite the turn of events, like I was just talking about at the beginning, I am still in the training regimen, and getting more ramped up. Uh, I am getting back on the bicycle. It's been a long time, but I'm really, happy to be getting back on the bicycle and starting to ride seriously again. I don't know if I'll ever do another triathlon in my life, but it is good to ride. So, and then, yeah, I'm hoping I can use this. I'm trying to find the silver linings in places. So, um, there is a robust conversation going on about the foliage of Florida. I'll say this: high point nerd alert for Florida. The pine trees were the main thing they were logging by Britton Hill. Um, but who the hill is named after, I can't think of his first name. His last name was Britton. He was one of the timber barons in that area. And they extensively logged the pine forests in that part of the Florida Panhandle. And that's why that whole community, it was a logging town when it was booming. The That's where the wealth was coming from, was all the pine trees they were cutting down. So terrible ideas, especially when you're above the trees on Washington. It can get really disorienting with zero visibility and waist high snow drifts. But as long as you're with knowledgeable people, you should be okay. It's funny. I stopped as I was driving back down. I actually stopped at a couple areas to film, and the fog would set in. And you're absolutely right. Because once that fog blew in, you literally, if you weren't paying attention, it would be so easy to get turned around above that tree line, because everything sort of, your visibility goes to nothing. Like in some cases, 6 feet in front of you. And if you can't pick out the cairn on the trail, um, you would you would quickly lose it. Um, so it was even for something like that, it was fascinating. You can easily see how Washington can really mess with people. So um, yeah, they did. They tapped all the pine trees, returned pine trees. It's funny, if there is a particular type of timber that has driven this country, um, it was pine. White pine, in particular, was a huge industry. You start seeing this, like it literally is why uh, the pine tree allotments are part of the reason why New Hampshire exists as a state. Um, the King's Mast, the broad arrow they'd cut on, they weren't cutting those on like oaks, they were cutting them on white pines because pines grow up tall and straight. Um, and so you see the lumber industry going across the country chasing after the pine trees and wiping out all these old growth pine tree forests. And even today, even when you get further out and you start seeing the ponderosa pine cuttings down in like Arizona or around Flagstaff, and the same like in Florida and in Georgia, those pine trees were prized commodity. So it's fascinating to see. It was also really fascinating to see, if you really dig into logging in the United States, where the trees would end up. So you'd get trees that were logged in, say, Alabama, going to buildings in New York City or Chicago, or even out like in Portland or that area, because they like the color of the wood. And it's really fascinating to see how um, how in depth that industry was. So And you're right, the turpentine, the resin for sailing, all that stuff. Pine trees are super valuable. Man, it's 9:10. I've talked about a lot of stuff. I hope um, I hope everybody's had this was well worth your time tonight. And oh, that's pretty cool. Old ceramic broken terracotta cups that were used to collect turpentine. That's awesome. Um, Not counting the ones that are state on national. I haven't dedicated any time really to national park high points, uh, like that haven't been included in the state ones. It's oh, cycling. Before to answer your question, Archie, before I got into triathlon, believe it or not, and you've met me in person, so you know I'm not a small dude. But I ran cross country in high school, so running was something. Um, but cycling was always my favorite, and um, I got involved with a cycling team when I was living in Madison, and then the team sort of broke up, and that's when I jumped into triathlon. So cycling has always been my strongest element. I could always ride a bicycle all day long. That was never a problem. Uh, my biggest problem was I'm usually was the biggest guy on the team, so my job was always to pull people along. I was never going to win a race for you. At least I was never going to be the guy crossing the finish line winning the race. Is a better way to put it. But I could help the team win a race by pulling those guys along. So um, check out my Oak Trail State Forest in Massachusetts for old growth pines, some of the best in the state. Yeah, if you're out in by Hoy Crest, there's old growth forest in Garrett Forest out there, Garrett State Forest out there. There's some old growth hemlock forest here in Pennsylvania. I'm going to go visit sometime soon. Um, I feel like swimming is the most taxing of the three, unless you've met somebody who was on the swim team in high school or college, and then they just crush that discipline. So, but running, swimming, and hiking are all very similar sports. Yes, but no. This is why in triathlon, your brickwork is so essential to what you're doing. You have to do your bricks as much as they suck. So you're either bricking, you're doing your swim and then getting on the bike for like one of your training sessions, you're doing that brick, or most people brick the cycling to running session. Because while you're doing a lot of that and you're not necessarily using all the similar muscles. Um, so, are there really good class 3 hikes in St. Louis area? Probably, I don't know. I would say though, if you're gonna go looking for awesome hikes, you probably need to head to the Mark Twain National Forest. Um, you need to get into the St. Francis Mountains, Ozark Highlands to um, really find some good solid hikes. Um, yeah, old growth is one of my favorites. If you have time, um, the Sylvania Wilderness up in um, Michigan. I want to say it was more recently designated wilderness than it used to be, but that's actually worth. There's some really cool growth in there, uh, and that's sort of near the Porcupine Mountains area. It's great for canoeing. Um, but yeah, old growth. Old growth is interesting. It's fascinating to be in some of these woods that have seen sort of history unfold around it. So, um, Bill, I used to do road cycling. I don't think I will ever race a road. I will never do a road cycling race again. I do like to ride the bike, but I don't think I will ever race unless I can find like an old folks team. So anyway, it is 9:14. Thank you all for being here tonight. This is a fun conversation, and stay tuned for more stuff coming soon. And as fearsome critters gets closer to coming out the door, I will definitely be talking more about it, and you'll probably see more stuff coming out about it. In the meantime, stay tuned for Alabama. That'll be out soon. I think it's pretty good. It's definitely more comprehensive than the original. So, and then finally, will you want to incorporate Badwater Basin? No. Badwater Basin is literally going to be its own fun thing. And it's even got a title, The Basement of America. If you got to do the rooftops, you got to do the basement. So there's going to be one episode about that. So yeah, I feel like that particular the logic behind it, not just to make light of it, but Badwater Basin and Death Valley in general has so much cool history and so much interesting stuff around it that I wouldn't be able to leave it to just a throwaway comment. I want to explore that area. That area is super cool, and there's so much to talk about there. So, hey, I'm going to go all in for it. So, and on that bombshell, I hope you guys have a wonderful night and a great 2 weeks. And I will see you uh, the weekend after President's Day. So safe travels if you're going and doing stuff. Eric, safe travels up Washington. And thanks for all being here. Cheers.